Welcome to the Astrology Magic Podcast, where deep truth meets radical transformation. I'm Rachel, your astrologer and guide, here to speak the kind of truths that rattle around in your head until they land in your body and change your life. This podcast is not here to meet you where you're at. It's here to meet you where your soul is begging to go. I don't do light and fluffy. I do real, raw, cellular level evolution through astrology, presence, embodiment, and self-honesty. If you're tired of superficial spirituality and ready to live in alignment with your highest self, even when it's uncomfortable, you're in the right place. Let's drop in. Okay, so I'm really excited because I have my client and I feel like you're my friend at this point. Hani Caiserman on today. I've loved working with Hani. Honestly, I've cried a lot of days because I feel like Hani and me are so similar, and through working with her, I just was like, wow, people like me do exist. People who are not afraid to go into the shadow and not afraid to go deep and really transmute shit. It takes a lot to do what I've seen Hani do over these last 6 months. It's insane to me what she's done. Um, and it's brought so much joy and positivity to my life. So I'm just really excited to have her on, because she also helps mothers and women through every stage of womanhood. So we're going to talk about that. She helps mothers go and transition into pregnancy, and then mothering, and then all stages of womanhood. And I can say, I can vouch for Hani. She is divine medicine woman, just so good at what she does. And I want people to see what's possible in such a short period of time, because a lot of the transitions and transformations I've seen Hani undergo in the last 6 months would take most people several years. And so I'm just excited for you to hear how she thinks and all those different things. So Hani, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Tearing up listening.
Literally, I don't even think I've told you how many times I've cried over my gratitude in private. So I would just love to hear your origin story and where you came from and how you even got into wanting to help women with motherhood. Her business is called Breath of Hani. So she does breath work and different things like that. But I don't think I've ever heard how you got into all of this. Yeah.
Okay, well, how far back do I want to go? So real quickly, so I'm a mother and I have 4 children, and their ages are from my oldest is almost 18 to my youngest is 4. So I've been having children for quite some years. And so the work that I do is with pregnancy, postpartum, and in womanhood. And it's utilizing breathwork techniques and clearing generational trauma cycles. And that just kind of naturally evolved because as a very young person growing up, I was hyper aware of things that were happening within my family dynamics. With my parents, in our immediate family, and then extending to extended family and grandparents and aunties, and how everyone treated each other, and just, yeah, family patterns that I did not like. And, I was young, so I didn't really understand. You just kind of accept things as face value. So when I began my family, I think I was 25 when I had Noah, my oldest. And it was kind of at that point where things clicked in, where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this differently. And still not really aware of how or what was happening. But I made a conscious effort to break these cycles. It was almost innate in me. And then later on, as the years progressed, I found a modality that dealt that I got trained in that was specifically to generational trauma and clearing subconscious patterns and cycles within the family unit that go way back. And so that's kind of how I got into that aspect. And then as the years went on, I got certified in breath work, and I used this specific technique to do the trauma clearing. And gosh, there's like so many details I could go into. I'm trying to make it concise. But what really kind of set things off was in 2020, I had my fourth baby, little Miss Mila, and I was not planning on having her. And I'm very much, as Rachel knows, I like plans.
She's got a
it's
Capricorn moon and a Virgo
it's
midheaven.
written, yeah, it's written in my stars. And so Mila was not a part of my plan. And it was almost like she activated something inside of me where I was going on a different trajectory. And it was like she came in and was like, no, mom, this is like not, we're going to do something else. And she would have like, she would kind of get stuck in this I don't think I didn't share this with you. No, this is really cool. So she would get stuck almost in this, like in the astral plane where she would be sleeping and I could feel that she was waking up, but she wouldn't all the way wake up, and she would get freaked out and there was nothing I could do to soothe her, which was so unlike all of my other children. As soon as I put them in my arms or, start nursing them, it's like they're good to go. Like she couldn't. Yeah, so it was this interesting thing that was happening that I had never dealt with my three previous babies. And so I started doing these different types of meditations with her and like working with her energy in the quantum field. And I had always been really interested in those things and like metaphysics, and you kind of like dive in more sometimes. And then I just got busy with life. And with Mila, I didn't know how else to, I don't want to say like handle or manage it, but it was like something was going on that it's like I was in tune with it. And I wanted to help her. So I started kind of working on her energetic field and my energetic field and like our connection. And I don't know if I want to say solve the problem, the issue, but there was a few different things that I started doing with her that I was like, I can help moms. I can help moms do this. And this is how it originally started, where I was like, okay, I want to develop some different ways. I wasn't sure at that time. So this was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, of how I was going to maybe package it or coach women or what I was going to do. And so slowly, as I just got more and more, like I dove deeper and deeper into all of these, like got my coaching certification, did some intuition work, did more breath work training, more generational trauma healing. And I just kept diving deeper and deeper in. And then Breath of Hani evolved from there. So yeah, are there any specific questions in that? I mean, there's so much that I could go into.
Yeah, I never heard that story before. That's so cool that you did that. So I would love to know about like the breath work piece, like and how did you work on her energy field and your energy fields
Right.
specifically?
So at the time when I started doing it, it was like purely on like intuition and just kind of being psychic, I guess. So I would be holding her. So what I started doing actually is I started working on her energy field and our connection before she went to bed. So as she was in that liminal space, it was almost maybe kind of like hypnotherapy a little bit, like a baby version. And so I would hold her and I would like ground both of us. I mean, they're so connected to you, like literally. I would ground us, and then I would pull up the energies that I wanted to, like frequencies like from the earth that I wanted to ground her in. And kind of like some of your listeners might know this, but it's like when babies come in, they're not fully completely like locked in to this. existence. You know, it's like they're halfway in, halfway out. And I want to say it's like at about 3 years old is when they kind of like their spirit is 100% here. And at up 7 years is when they get out of that kind of hypnotic space where literally they're walking around in a state of hypnosis. So whatever you say and do and feel, and they are absorbing all of it. Um, which which was is like my biggest driving force was our impact as women, as mothers on the next generation. It's like so important. So anyways, I started pulling up all these frequencies, and then I would talk to her, sometimes telepathically, energetically, sometimes out loud. And I would just tell her, you're safe. You're safe to be here on earth. You're safe to fall asleep, and then you're safe to come back. I'm getting covered in chills.
Mm.
That was a really big one where it was like, you're safe to come back. Cause that's what I could intuitively feel, is that she would be off in dreamland. And then it was like to come back into like this dense, heavy earth was really challenging for her. And so I started just doing like my own kind of practice and free flowed with it. And it worked. And it totally worked. And she calmed down and stopped having any sort of sleeping issue whatsoever.
That's so amazing. One thing I'll say, when Hani said she's very psychic, she is. She has Neptune, which is the planet of spirituality. It rules hypnosis. It's the planet that's like between the two worlds, the spirit realm. It's basically the spirit realm. And she has Neptune with her sun. So whenever someone has Neptune with their sun, her sun is very Neptunian. She's a Sagittarius, but she's like a Piscean Neptunian Sagittarius. It makes someone very connected to energy. And then also, I'll say, in terms of you being a cycle breaker, she grows and expands. She has Jupiter in Scorpio in the 12th house, which the 12th house is related to that psychic realm, intuition. And so I'm not even surprised you're able to like track all these patterns and make it happen. It's probably one of the reasons I love working with you so much, because I feel like I can just give you something and Hani runs with it. Like she just makes it her own, you know? She's really good at connecting all of the dots and the patterns. Okay, I think that's so freaking cool, especially because in our work together, Hani does self-concept work, and I know she's really big into saying her self-concept as she goes to bed too, which
Yeah.
kind of feels like it relates in with this. But
I
so
didn't
what,
even put that together actually until just now. Yeah.
oh, yeah, you
Yeah.
like do it to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how did the breath work come in? I want to know more about that breath work modality too that you touched on.
Okay. So breath work was just something I utilized um, through my adulthood and through having children and just keeping myself present and grounded and being my best version of myself. So that's something that I teach women, and in pregnancy, of like really keeping a calm, grounded nervous system, so that you, it's like women hold the energy of the home. And so if you're coming from a space that is calm and grounded, which is not always the case, and not and sometimes a stretch, but for the most part, your family unit will correspond. They'll kind of just follow your lead. So that's always just been kind of there. And then I learned a breath work technique. It's called conscious connected breath. And it's specific for trauma release. And so I use that in the generational trauma piece. So when we are looking at, so with the generational trauma work that I do, it's 4 core wounding patterns stemming from your birth energy, what you picked up in your mother's womb, your mother wound, which is all relational dynamics. It's your first relationship. Your father wound, which is more related to your safety, security, your home environment. your sibling wound, which is kind of like your birth order, your dynamics within your home. And that's related to maybe motivation, competition. If you didn't have a sibling, then we're going to look at like your closest relationships in your general age. So it could be a best friend or a cousin or a step sibling. Um, so those are the four core wounding patterns that we address, and we go through a lot of, I mean, it's like kind of specific coaching and questions and journaling and really getting under the layers of all the meat to the emotion. And it's usually patterns you don't realize are attached to those wounds. And then we go through trauma release breath work, which is the conscious connected breathing, and a lot of trust in your body and for it to know what's in your best good, so that's it kind of like in a nutshell. And then a lot of, to then piggyback on that, then we'll do a lot of inner child healing, which is really beneficial when you're a parent, because what happens is you can use your children for real-time inner child healing, because often you respond to your children from your inner child. And if you can give what your inner child wanted to your child in real time, it's like healing their lineage, right? Like you're healing their trajectory. You're also healing yourself and then previous ancestors. So that's a really beautiful, like, just healing technique.
Yeah, I've even seen you do that real time, like in our work together through our conversations. I know we've had like a lot of conversations about that. It's so wild how it shows up, but we can be like unconscious to it. But then I'm sure when you do the breathing and the journaling, it brings so much to the forefront that you probably didn't see before. I love how you said you also use it to stay grounded. So listen to this. Hani has 4 kids. And I don't know any mom who has 4 kids. Granted, I know one of them's on another island right now, but still 3 kids.
That was like even harder almost for me and my, yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally. But Hani has 3 kids and she lives her life. Like I've never met a mom who has 3 kids and she goes on hikes where she does her self-concept work and she like eats well and she goes to the sauna and she goes to the gym and you just don't have excuses. And
And
I
have
just,
date days.
yeah, and you have date days, like her and her husband. I'm just like, I just want you, would love for you to share with everyone, like how you're a superwoman. What do you do?
Thank you. I will take that. I will own it. I will own my superpower, superwoman vibes. How do I do it? So yeah, gosh, I don't even know. Sometimes it's challenging. So we had our first 2 kids kind of back to back. They were 2 years apart, and that was really, really intense. And I was like, okay, I don't want any more kids. And then as they got older, I was like, oh, I really want to have the third. And then the fourth kind of came along. I think because there is such a big gap between oldest and youngest, I mean, that could send somebody in a spiral of it being harder, right? Because I'm dealing with teenage emotions and 4-year-old tantrums. But it also, it's kind of like you grow with your children, but not everybody does that. So I'm trying to think, like, how do I think I have spent a lot of my years, not currently, where I gave from my heart and because I wanted to, because I love my kids and my family, and it's they're so important to me. And I did come to a point where I was like, okay, this is not working. And I was aware of it, where it's like, I didn't want to be that person that's resentful of my husband or my children. Or I guess I'm a person, I really own my shit and I really take responsibility for myself. So if I see that something isn't working for me, I'm not a victim. And I'm just like, okay, well, what can I do? Because there's always something you can do. If it's as little as just like closing your bedroom door and taking a few breaths. So I think that, so one of my superwoman powers is like taking responsibility for myself and my life and what I want. Um,
I would agree
another,
with that. I know
yeah.
her.
Another one would be just my, like I mentioned before, like my driving force is wanting my children to, I know we all are going to have our own struggles and our life lessons, but I wanted to set them up with a foundation of like without all of the strings from past lineage, ancestors, all of those kinds of things. And also just like communication skills and openness and love and compassion so that they are going out into the world with like possibility and opportunity versus like life is so hard because you see mom pulling out her hair over here and she never has time for herself and she's constantly fighting with dad. And, you know, it's not that they've never seen any of that, but it's like I was able to put my vision of what I want for the next generation at the forefront and then take action by like, is this in service to what my greater vision is for myself and my children? I guess. I mean, I'd have to like kind of think about that question. I think there's more, but
Yeah, I'm sure it goes really deep. But one thing I'll say about Hani, just knowing her astrology, she is here to be a change maker for the future. She's here to show people that there's an easier way to do things, that there's a completely different way that no one's seen before way of doing things. So I think, and I also think it speaks to the fact that you're a Sagittarius sun and rising, that you look at the bigger picture. She like holds this vision. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of like luck, growth, and expansion. And the reason they have luck and growth is they see the future vision, and it's almost like you hold that as like the guiding star. And then they just move forward. They just keep moving forward. And so I feel like you just described that energy so perfectly. I'm sure there's someone listening to you though who's like, okay, like I have locked myself in my bedroom. I've locked myself in the bathroom and these
yeah.
like do you have like a specific, I don't know, a specific example that felt challenging that you navigated that you could think of?
Gosh, so much. How about my last like,
Mhm.
oh, do you mean like in actual mothering? Like,
Yeah, in mothering and like handling everything.
wow. So I would say probably the biggest like culmination of intenseness has been the past 2 years where so I am from Lahaina. I live in Lahaina and now it's not in the news, but in August 2023, fires came through and like completely decimated our entire town and existence. It was horrible.
It's in
So
Maui, Hawaii, for those who don't know.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Maui
It was
fires.
yeah, it was rough. So in the course of these 2 years, and especially like immediately following, the amount of emotions for myself, for my husband, for us, and for each one of my children, managing it differently in all of the houses that have moved, we had to move. Gosh, it's like I think about it, it's like overwhelming to even think about it. So I I think again, I just held my vision of what is important to me. And that can look different for everyone. And for me, it was I want a secure, loving home and environment for my children. And how do I create that through literal trauma for all of them, right? It's in varying degrees. You know, my littlest at the time, my littlest was 2, almost 3. So it's like she's kind of along for the ride, right? But she would still say, I want to go back to my greenhouse. I want to go back to my greenhouse. Um, and then more dramatic where my teenagers are just completely devastated. And so I just for myself personally, I would take time to care for myself so that I could show up for my family to care for them. And I just listened and loved them and didn't really ask much of them, right? Like just presence, I would say. So in real time, and this is a really severe situation, right? There's so many things that unfolded over the course of the 2 years that it was like, okay, everything's okay. Oh, wait, I mean, it's not. And it's just like a constant, like I've told you so many times where I'm like, I'm just so exhausted by the amount of energy that I have to put out into the world. And it's not necessarily because it's bad, or it's like our family has been very successful through it. I think because my husband and I were both on the same page of like, our biggest goal for our family, or our biggest priority, is to keep us safe, secure, and in a loving space. Um, so real-time practices, yeah, it could be breath work or meditation or walking or exercise or talking to my coach or going to the beach or whatever it is. And with my children, I would say it's just being there. And it's a lot easier to be there and be present when you are present with yourself first.
I love that you said that because here's the thing about Hani is she doesn't bypass to get to these states. She like self-reflects, takes responsibility, feels the feeling, and that's how she gets into presence. I talk about truth a lot on my podcast, and she does not bypass truth. She like alchemizes it and holds it.
However, when I first started working with you, that I wasn't against truth, but I was, I think, um, well, coming into working with you kind of on the tail end of all of this trauma, I don't think I was as connected to my truth, even though I was. Like, how would you explain that? Because it's like I was still me, but it was like not, it was like a less content truth, maybe I would say, or less peaceful truth.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. Well, I think you would know how it feels the most, but from my experience with you and from words I've heard you say, is you feel a lot more grounded now. And so it's like she's always had this capacity to hold, I
Mm-hmm.
think, a lot. It's just now you've really gained the self-awareness and tools to stay grounded while you hold. It's almost like I don't know, like someone's digging a hole and you dug way deeper. And so now you're like way more rooted in, like the roots
Yeah.
really grew. So maybe this is a good transition because I would love to just hear how people like seriously, she can take shit by the balls and like ground it in and transform it. So why don't we tell people too how you felt when you first started working with me and like what was different in your life about 6 months ago, like literally 6 months ago.
Yeah. So I know, and I've said this many times to you where it's like I'm totally the same person, but I feel completely different. And I think I've probably had like multiple timeline hops where I'm like, oh my gosh, this breakthrough has just like taken me to the next level. So I would say when we first started working together, I was much more in my head, for sure. I was in my head, and it was like, how do I do more? Or like if I wanted things out of life, it was like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And while that, there's some practical things you need to do to move your life forward, what you and I really worked on was connecting, like feeling in my body versus my mind, because I'm a thinker and I go through all scenarios, like all different ways, and want the perfect scenario. And so I really started paying attention to how things felt in my body. And I like kind of like stopped doing everything. It was like less is more, less is more, less is more. And kind of like just guided my decisions based on what it felt like in my body, which I had not been doing at all, which seems like, like very like duh. I mean, but I was not. So that was one huge, huge thing. And in doing so, I think one of my first self concepts was I'm connected to my truth and I follow what gives me energy. And I was like, how can that, like, that's like nothing. Like, and it completely transformed my life. Like that one self concept. And we've done many more since, but that one
Mhm.
was so impactful for me. And I'll go back to it when I just feel a little shaky. Like I'm connected to my truth. I follow what gives me energy, because in its most simple form, anyone can use that self concept and be guided in the perfect direction for their life. You know, like if everyone on this planet could follow what gives them energy, it's like the world would be a much better place, you know? I think we get so caught up in what society and other people and tell you what life should look like, or what you should want, or what you should be doing. And when you stop all of that and you reflect inwards and you pay attention to yourself and your truth and what you value, it's like life just opens up in such a beautiful way. And I think that's for me. I was like, I want to, yeah, like and that was actually going back to how I kind of started getting into, or wasn't getting into the work at the time, but when I was pregnant with Noah, my first, everybody was telling me all of these awful things about pregnancy and motherhood, and it's going to be so hard, and giving birth is just the most awful thing. And I was like, what the fuck is wrong with everyone? Like, why? Like, maybe that's your experience, but why are you telling me that's going to be my experience? And I was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I had beautiful birth experiences and wonderful mothering journey. And so I guess that's like, I don't even know where I'm going with this.
Well, no, I think you're so right. That's the thing. I actually just sent out an email today on truth and how people think that their truth is like some sort of truth, and then they share it with people. They're like, this is my truth, as if it's going to be your truth. And really, they're not sharing truth. They're just projecting a story onto that person. And what I heard from you is like, I think a lot of us suffer with this. I suffered with this most of my life, which was that there's so much information out there, and we're taught from such an early age, don't listen to yourself, just listen to all these other people. And so then when you hear all of this stuff coming at you, it's super ungrounding. Of course people are in their head. Like of course you were in your head. Of course I was in my head. You know what I'm saying? I remember when Hani decided to work with me, we talked about like if the energy expands or contracts, and she said, "Well, the energy feels expansive, so let's do it." And
Yeah.
like since that point, I also want to go back to the self-concept work, because I talked about how with self-concept work, you have to give it like 110% effort. And I remember you said you were a little scared when I said that.
I remember that Voxer message. I was like, but how do I know what 110% is? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I?
Can you tell people what your like how you ingrained it and what it looked like 110% effort looked like for you?
Yeah. What I would do is I would take like, and I was like really serious about this 110%. But I was like, I want it to work. I would do like if I were, say I was doing like a mask on my hair or something like that, where you have like an allotted amount of time where it's like, oh, I have 5 minutes that I have to have this. I would just like say my self concept. So there was like time when I would do it when I was in like a time limit of something that I was had a timer for. And that worked. And then I would do it. I stopped bringing my phone and my headphones on my white walks and my hikes, because for a while I had been like, well, I think it would be good to be just silent, but I like to listen to things, and I'm the more and more and more I want more information, and I get super interested in things, and I want to listen to podcasts and audiobooks, and at some point it's like, okay, enough. Um and so I had been feeling like I want quiet. Like that's a great time. You're going for a hike for an hour, perfect. And so this when we started doing self-concept, that was like the perfect kind of excuse or opportunity where I was like, okay, I'm going to leave my phone. And then the cool thing is you told me based on my chart that it was actually a really like moving, and saying my self-concept was like a synergistic effect. So I would do my self-concept like for an entire hour, just saying it, saying it, saying it, saying it. And would feel so good. Like I could feel myself getting more and more and more energized. And then I would also do it in the sauna, because that was another great time where I'm just quiet and laying there. And then I started also doing it. I guess as I'm saying it, I'm like, I was 110%.
Was.
I would say it when I'm going to sleep. And this was the really cool thing. What I noticed happening, and I remember sending you a message about this, where I would be saying my self concept as I'm falling asleep. And you're going into that liminal space. And then, you kind of wake up throughout the night at some point, or like multiple times. I'm a pretty light sleeper, I think, because of so many years of just being on duty at 24 hours a day. But I would notice when I would wake up, my head was still saying the self concept. So then I was like, holy shit, this is like, I mean, talk about hypnosis to them, like rewiring your brain. Like it's literally doing it for me while I'm sleeping, you know? And I thought that was kind of fascinating. It doesn't happen every single time. Um, but a lot of the time, if I go to sleep saying my self concept, it's kind of like the next time I wake up and I'm right there with my self concept still. So that's kind of the majority of the ways that I work with it. Or the other thing I do, this was also really, really beneficial for me. If we were working on something, say related to like emotions, or like I was having things come up in my marriage or with my children or whatever it was, in real time, I would sit there, because one of my big self concepts was I feeling responsible for everyone else's emotions and having a hard time if they didn't feel good. And so being able to sit with big emotions was challenging for me. And so one of my self concepts was related to that. So whenever I felt overwhelmed by emotions, or an argument with my husband or whatever it was, I would just immediately go into my self concept, and I could feel that like tight contraction. I would always feel it in my gut. It would completely subside. So it's like I could notice the shift in my energy in real time.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about self-concept is it almost helps you become aware of those like subconscious patterns you do. Like I remember there were so many self-concepts you've done where then you're able to like catch yourself in real time, like talking to Navaya or talking to your kids and being like, well, my self-concept, Hani would like message me and tell me about these stories and be like, well, my self-concept was this. And then I noticed I did that. And so then I corrected it and did this. It almost like it gives you that laser focus.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I also think because they're like simple, and I don't know if this is how self-concept is for everybody across the
Mhm.
board, but how it is for me, it's like we come up, it can be this really big thing, like your truth, right? Like that's huge,
Yeah.
but we can make it into this very simple one liner that it just like brings you back to neutral, and you're like, oh yeah, it's like a reminder, like, oh yeah, this is actually, or for like with the big emotions, like, oh yeah, like I'm totally safe to feel these big emotions, like I forgot. That's what it would be like. Oh, I forgot. Oh yeah. Everything's
I'm
fine.
this person.
Yeah. Yeah. And it allowed me to make so many choices or decisions in my life, like really big decisions, especially because of what my family is coming out of. Um, and but make decisions that came from my truth, from feeling like grounded, and yeah, what feels good. And it's like when you follow what feels good, and I don't mean that in just like, we're gonna go out and party and just like feel
Yeah.
good all the time. Like I mean more of like the moving forward feeling good, like the next thing, or
Expansive.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
like
choices.
healthy.
Yes, choices that I've had to make with business growth. It's like, is this in alignment with my self concept, with what feels good in my body, with feeling expansive, like that version of yourself that's there, that it's like you just kind of need to tune into. And so when you use your self concept like that, it's like, and then what happens is you kind of just naturally become it, right? It's like I'm not really doing the self concept of me being connected with my truth anymore, because it's like it already, I embodied in it, right? So
Mhm.
it's like it's cool to watch progression of everything. And also, I have to say, to give you props, what has been the best about the self concept work is that you couple it with what's going on in the stars. So it's like, if right now, what's being illuminated in my sky is boundaries with my family. So it makes a lot more sense to be focusing on a self concept related to that versus maybe a financial self concept or something like that, or like an abundance self concept. So that I think has actually really helped me like make quantum leaps because I'm like harnessing all of the energy, not just like this is what I want. It's like, well, what is the thing that's being shown to me right now that I can make breakthroughs with?
Yeah, totally. I would love to hear. So we talked about self-concept and how powerful that is, and fuck yeah, it is. Hani just mentioned how we're using the astrology to help guide her self-concept. We've done that from the very beginning. I had like a birth chart reading with Hani, and that's how we got into one-on-one coaching because we saw like where the energy was heading. I'd love to hear like what have you thought about your experience with astrology? How has astrology in other ways helped you create these quantum leaps? Like what
Yeah.
is it about it?
So it's so cool because I don't have like the story with astrology that I would think probably a lot of your listeners have where it's like their thing. Um I I've had many readings and I nothing ever like stuck, nothing ever. I was just kind of like and I what I really did not like was what turned me off about astrology was people saying, "Oh, you're a Sagittarius. Oh, they're a Gemini. Oh, you're like this because of this. You're like," and I was just like, I am not in a box. Like, don't put me in a box. Like, it just bugged me. And so I kind of discredited it, but it was because it wasn't the right people, right? Um, and so I had listened to you on a podcast, and there was something, and you weren't saying anything that was so much. You were talking about I think you used the word evolutionary astrology.
Yeah, using the North Node and South Node. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, there was something, and I didn't have a lot of information from that podcast to be like, oh, I'm converted to astrology. Like, but there was something, obviously it was definitely divinely led where I was like, I want to get a reading by her. And I hadn't had an astrology reading in a really long time. Um, and yeah, and everything just kind of like it felt so good. The way that you describe it and use it in life is like nothing I had ever experienced in the astrology realm. So now I'm like completely fascinated, a total believer. But what's funny is I can't commit any of it to memory. Like none of it where I'm listening to you or I'll read my lunar return and I'm like, wow, but I couldn't tell you what any of my planets and what any of the houses or anything, none of it. I don't really know why. I hear it, it makes sense. I'm like, sweet. And then it just kind of fades away, which is great because that's why I have you. So yeah, so astrology has been game changer for my life. I feel like absolute game changer. And the really cool thing about it was never a part of my life prior to this. And I was actually a little bit turned off. So it's interesting how like I didn't need to be coaxed into it or anything. It was just something about the way that you brought it forward resonated so deeply with me, and it gives me like some of it's like validation, right, where I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense, like when you talk about all the cycle breaker aspects of my chart, and it's like that has been present for me since I was a little kid. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then a lot of things like with business, right, where it's like I do things different. It's like I spent so much years in business coaching that none of it felt right, but I was doing what I was quote unquote supposed to do and not listening to my truth. And so that's been huge. And then within family dynamics, just like, yeah, just using all of it to your advantage. And sometimes it's really hard. Like it's not easy, like I'll be on Voxer, like, okay, another lesson, like I gotta learn another lesson. Like, when are the stars just gonna chill? But like I know what's on the other side is like it's so beautiful, and like when I have those breakthroughs, it's like, oh my gosh, like I get it. Like I'm not here to just live this surface life and everything be happy. It's like my happiness and my joy are like deeply rooted in my being and my experiences and in my family. Like there's so much. So of course my lessons and things are going to be more intense.
Totally. I mean, this is one of the reasons I've loved working with Hani is because she's not afraid of truth. Yeah, sometimes she'll be like, oh, the fucking lessons. And you know what? Sometimes I say that too. I'm like, give me a fucking break here, you know?
Yeah.
And we had this conversation the other week talking about that, and it's kind of like choose your hard, like Hani goes to the gym, she eats healthy, like just like me. Like that's why I'm saying there's a lot of similarities
Yeah.
between us. And it's the same thing with evolving and living life. Like I was telling Hani, the world is always going to have earthquakes and it's always going to have tsunamis and it's always going to have, like, the earth is going to always keep moving and we're part of the earth. And so we're always going to keep moving. And we can resist it just like we don't have to go to the gym and we can eat a bunch of crap and feel like crap. Or we can choose a different hard. And that's the hard that can transmute into something that's so much better. And also, like, it can help to me. And I'm curious if you feel this way too. Astrology helps you maybe loosen the grip on the resistance of the lesson a little bit.
Yeah. And it also it it's like it can kind of make it seem not so overwhelming where it's like you have all of these lessons. It's like let's just hone in on what is going on right now. And so what I mean is you could have this like big problem or issue or conflict or whatever it is, but if we take aspects of astrology of and then you can kind of you can take out the threads that are attached to what's going on in the sky and focus on those things to kind of alleviate it. Do you know what I mean? It's yeah. So I guess that would be lessening the tension. It's like rather than focus on all of it, it's like let's just do what's most important here. And then it seems to, I don't know, it works for me. I'll tell you that. It does. It's been great.
That makes me so happy to hear. I feel you. Yeah, it's when people say like just stop resisting it and surrender, that's what I think we're talking about here.
That was one of my self concepts.
Yeah.
I surrender. I surrender to life. Yes.
Oh my God. So I have one last question for you. I would love to hear how has like connecting to your truth and getting more in your body, following the astrology, like surrendering to the life's lessons coming out the other side impacted how you now mother and like what you do in your work because I know it has in so many ways and it's what you're helping people with.
Yeah, so I would say for like my mothering and like my family life, it has just given me much more peace, clarity, contentment. We are also going to be traveling for the next 7 months, and so, which was also written in the stars, but we had decided to do it before I knew that. Um, and so it has helped me. Gosh, it's like, how do I put this into words? I think it's helped me like make choices that are in alignment to what my highest vision of my life is. So that would be like personally and mothering and like making me a better person kind of for my children, right? It's like they don't, I'm not you. Well, sometimes I do ask you questions about my kids' astrology, but it's more of like an internal thing for me so that the way that I show up for them is in my highest self. which then gives them the opportunity to be their highest version of themselves. And then with business, it has been really, really interesting because it was kind of like all the things I thought I should do more, how I should do it, the speed at which I should do it. It's kind of dissolved all of that, where I'm really, really focusing on building the kind of company that I want and that works for my family and the life that I want to create for myself. And that's been huge. So I've just completed all of my product suites for pregnancy, postpartum, and womanhood. And it took longer than I was anticipating because, like I mentioned before, I'm always like I'm in my head and it's like, let's go, let's go. Like I'm pretty energetic and I like to get things done and I'm organized and yeah, let's go. And it's really taught me to just kind of just slow the fuck down, which feels so good in my system when I actually pay attention to that. And started working with a company who's in complete alignment to my values. That was one of our first meeting calls, was like, what do you want? Versus this is what we do. So we've worked everything, we have an entire plan through 2025 to build and sustain my business the way that I want it to feel. And I think that's so important because then that parlays onto all of my products and my courses and my programs and my interactions with clients. So that's been a really beautiful way to use astrology. And really it's like how, I mean, I get at its core, that's like my paying attention to my truth, like being in my truth and doing what I value.
Yeah, I will say, I think this is really important to mention that one of the things that makes Hani so powerful and has given her such deep transformation is that whenever Hani messages me and someone else is involved, it is rarely like what she rarely is like, fuck, like, what do they have to do to change? She's always like, what do I have to do
Mm-hmm.
to shift? Like, she completely has taken her power back. Actually, maybe we can talk about that just for like a couple more seconds because I think that's important. What, like, in your experience, what is taking your power back look like, and how has that transformed your life? Because you say it a lot, people say it generally, but she actually does it, and it's in every conversation that we have.
So for me, taking my power back, I think, is speaking my truth. And I mean, it's, that can be kind of nuanced, but in a way where I think for so long I was so concerned about making everyone happy. Like I have a very loving heart. So I still am that person. I still care very deeply about people and their feelings. However, I was doing that in a way where I was putting my feelings aside because like I'm strong and I got it. Like I think I talked a lot about that with you, right? Where I'm like, well, I'm good. Like this person's more emotional, so that's fine. And I took my power back by having my own voice and expressing myself and expressing my truth and realizing that you can do that in a way that is still kind and compassionate and from your heart. And sometimes it's going to be a little rocky, but you're doing a service to the people you're communicating to that way, as well as to yourself, like within your relational dynamics. Do you want me to like go deeper on that, or
You've
like,
just had so many examples of like with your kids, for example, where something happens and you want to react, but instead you like hold your power and then magical
yeah.
things happen.
Mm-hmm. So especially with my teenagers, but specifically my oldest, my son, he, because of the fires, he ended up finishing his senior year in Oahu at a boarding school, which has been really, like, we're a super tight family. So that was like been really hard, really, really hard. And I worked a lot with my self-concept, with the astrology, with April, with Rachel about like how holding my power to empower him, right? Because this is a huge thing in mothering is we think we know best. We have all, well, that was actually one of my generational patterns I wanted to break because it pissed me off with my mom so much, where I was like, I don't want to be like that. But it can creep in really, really easily if you're not paying attention. Because sometimes you do know best, but you want them to, you want, gosh, it's like they have to come to those conclusions themselves, right? So by me being in my power, I have allowed my children, and so my son specifically, we're talking about, be in his power by a lot of having conversations to get him to see things um, without me telling him things, right? Like, how does this feel to you? How does this make you feel? Versus like, it would be quicker for me to just say, you should do X, Y, and Z, right? But that's not the longevity of that for him. It's not giving him any power in his life. And it also doesn't put me in my power because I mean, then we can go into all the boundaries and everything. So I think with like being in my power in mothering, it's being completely open and allowing communication and guiding them to realize their own power in the choices they make and the decisions that they make throughout their day to day, with no matter how small or big they are, you know, but as they come up. And I think the more you do that, it just builds on itself and builds on itself so that when he's out on his own next year, it's like he has the confidence in himself to make decisions and choices that are in his own power. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, it makes total sense. I will say one of the things I've observed about Hani, like when speaking to like her getting more in her body and getting grounded is, you know how a lot of people say to respond, not react?
Mm-hmm.
That's one way I really see you hold your power is she's gotten really good at getting these, like something comes in that anyone would want to react to. And she doesn't. She like holds it, she calms herself, and then she's able to approach the situation from a place that can actually gain resolution.
Because I do, I feel it in my body. And the more and more connected I am inwards when things happen, whether it's with children or work or friends or whatever it is, it's like that's how I describe it, like this entire clench. And instead of going with that and then it just being this huge like compounding effect, it's like, okay, I feel it, doesn't feel good, and then working through it from there. But I
Mm.
think acknowledging the not feeling good, and so then with my children also I do that, right? Like if it doesn't feel good, like let them feel that too, because they're even, you know, their kids are less, they have less noise than we do at this age, right? So it's like if I can get them to build those habits at such a young age, it's like they're going to be so far ahead, right? It's like they're going to be going off into their adulthood already connected to their body and knowing what feels good and what doesn't. So it's kind of like all the things that I do and learn and go through for my own good, I then not only parlay it onto my kids in the sense that it's just the energy in my home. It's like I'm actually guiding them through these same lessons. You know, like I'm having a conversation with you about being in my power, and I'm literally doing that in real time. So it's like almost like healing my, going back to the inner child healing, right? Like I'm healing my inner child of being in my power through my son, that I'm giving that to and giving him the opportunity to be in his power. And so in even down to the littlest one, you know, it's like, yeah, taking all of these breakthroughs that I have personally and actually living them with my children. And not that I'm telling them I have this great breakthrough, right? But it's like the embodiment of the breakthrough or whatever it is that I've learned or that I've gone to the depths of my soul about, then I can come back into these relationships with my children and share that in something that they're going through, right? Like the 4-year-old version of it, or the 8-year-old version of it, or the 15-year-old version of it, or the 17-year-old version of it. And so that I think is like one of the most beautiful things that I do. So coming full circle to what makes me a super woman, a super mom, that's it. I think I just figured it out.
There it is. Because one more thing I want to name is that like people, like your power in this life, and I see it so much in Hani. I've seen it in my life, but now that I've seen it through Hani doing it too, I'm like, this is really people's power. Your power is that what you how the state you choose to be in and what and every time you choose to take responsibility in any relationship for what's going on between you two and like learn your own lesson, it naturally helps untie the knot for the other person somehow
Mhm,
in like so many different ways that we probably can't name right now.
mhm,
And Hani is just such a great example of it. Like you're magical. Hani's magical. Everyone is magical, and people's magical power is that you don't need to control someone in order for the situation to be resolved.
mhm. Yes, I had self concepts around control too. Yeah, and I mean it, and my kids are so cool. And of course, all mothers are just like the sun rises and sets on our children. But I see like I mean the level of maturity that I mean my son is still a 17-year-old boy, but just the way that my children relate to the world and to adults and to friends and within the community and in sports and just everything, they're really really incredible children, and I think that all kids have that opportunity if they are coming, like they're learning in that type of environment, and like that is my wish for the world, is to create home environments that feel really really good for you and then for the next generation. It's so important. And that starts in the womb. That's why I started with pregnancy.
Yeah, like I said, Hani is here to be a change maker to move humanity forward. And I imagine because your North Node's in Cancer is to show families like a new way to break the generational trauma. There's a new way of having a family. We didn't even get into the fact like her and her husband, they've been doing some other work on the side, but I
Yeah.
know it's been very similar conversations there. It
Mhm.
works on every level. Like it works with everyone. It's not even just with your children. So, Hani, thank you so much for coming on. I just like think you're the coolest. And I know so many people are going to be so inspired to hear what's happened like throughout your journey these last 6 months. Well, actually, one more thing. Like, how do you feel differently in your body?
I feel more at peace. Like that, like the happiness is like it's not a surface happiness, right? It's like deeply embodied in me. Like I feel good, but it's not this overwhelming extra emotion. It's just kind of like a very peaceful, joyful, in aligned feeling.
That's the power of doing everything Hani just talked about. So, Hani, where can people find you to learn from you?
So everything is Breath of Hani, and my name is spelled Hani. And my website is Breath of Hani. I just started. This was definitely led by what feels good to me. I just opened up a free community called Breathe and Thrive. So that would be a great place to land. Though there's monthly topics there, and we have live monthly breath work. We have 1 day a month of live Q&A. There's different resources, breath work meditations, and that's going to that's like organic and evolving. I just opened the doors a few weeks ago and we just had our first live breathwork session, but that's a great place to land because you can kind of see the types of conversations that I'm having, what's kind of prevalent, what's going on, because I like to teach as I go through things. And then also live breath work is always just the most amazing thing. Um, and then I have a couple different pregnancy products. One is Birthing with Ease. One is called Exhale. And this is all about really supporting mom and her energy and her relationships and her what she wants for her birth experience. And then for my postpartum, I felt like that was a really big kind of like empty space for people. There wasn't a lot of resources there. I had great postpartum experiences. I was very supported. That's also in my chart. I like to be supported. I thrive on support. So as much as I had like my friends and my community, I also outsourced support. And I think that's really important for you and your self-care. So there's two programs there. And for womanhood, we're focusing on generational trauma healing. I have one specific to your mother wound called relationship restoration. So if you're noticing pattern cycles and dynamics that continually happen in most all of your relationships or your most important intimate relationships, you can begin with the mother wounds and then elevate, which is all encompassing, like I was talking about, all the four major core wounds, inner child healing, creating structure. I've also added some self-concept in there because it's amazing. And I've had such huge results with that. And I am doing a workshop. Sorry, this is information overload, but I'm doing a workshop at the end of May, solely focusing on self-concept and how that's the missing link to manifestation. So that should be really fun. And it's exciting for me because it's like I have put 110% in for the past half year. And it's like I am a real living example of how the work actually works. So, and then Instagram, everything is Breath of Hani. So, Breath of Hani online on my website, Breath of Hani, Instagram. And I did just start a Birthing with Ease Instagram page as well. If you are pregnant or want to be pregnant, that's a great place to begin.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I'll put all of those links in the show notes below so you can easily find her. Thanks, Hani, for coming on. Now we have our session, so we're gonna take a 2 minute
Yeah.
break.
I'll go have a little snack.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.